Good morning. Welcome to Kenya News Update today. I'm your host, and we begin with a developing story that could bring air travel across the nation to a standstill. Aviation workers have issued a 7-day strike notice, threatening to shut down operations at key airports, including Jomo Kenyatta International. This is a deep dive investigation into the standoff between the Kenya Aviation Workers Union and the Kenya Civil Aviation Authority. We'll examine the core grievances, the potential economic fallout, and what this means for thousands of passengers. Joining us later will be perspectives from union leadership, aviation analysts, and economic experts. Let's start with the facts on the ground. On Monday, February 9, 2026, the Kenya Aviation Workers Union, known as KAWU, delivered a formal strike notice to the Kenya Civil Aviation Authority, the KCAA. The union represents a critical workforce of approximately 2,400 employees. These are not just desk workers. We're talking about air traffic controllers, safety inspectors, aerodrome officers, and technical personnel who are essential for the safe operation of every single flight in Kenyan airspace. The notice gives the authority exactly 7 days to address their demands, setting a potential strike date for Monday, February 16th. The union's Secretary General, Moss Ndi Ma, stated the action is a last resort after what he calls protracted and fruitless negotiations over a collective bargaining agreement that has been stalled for over 18 months. The central issue, according to the union's letter, is the failure to implement a reviewed collective bargaining agreement, or CBA. The previous CBA expired in June of 2024. Since then, negotiations have been ongoing, but the union claims the KCAA management has been dragging its feet. Key sticking points include salary increments, medical cover, and pension contributions. The union is demanding a 60% salary increase across the board, backdated to July 2024. They argue that their members' salaries have been severely eroded by inflation, which has averaged 8.5% over the last 2 years. Furthermore, they want the KCAA to fully cover comprehensive medical insurance for employees and their dependents, a benefit they say was promised but never fully realized. The third major point is the harmonization of pension contributions, aligning them with other state corporations. From the KCAA's perspective, the demands are financially unsustainable. In a statement released yesterday, the authority's Director General, Emil Arrow, acknowledged the right of workers to protest, but urged for continued dialogue. He stated that the union's demand for a 60% wage increase would cost the authority an additional 1.2 billion Kenyan shillings annually in recurrent expenditure. The KCAA, he argues, is a self-financing entity that relies on revenue from service charges and levies. He points to a 15% drop in total aircraft movements recorded in the last quarter of 2025, which he links to global economic pressures and reduced cargo flights. This, he claims, has put a significant strain on their financial model. The authority has reportedly tabled a counter-offer of a 12% salary increase phased over 2 years, along with a revised medical scheme, but this has been flatly rejected by the union as insulting. To understand the scale of this potential disruption, let's look at the numbers. The Kenya Civil Aviation Authority is responsible for the safety and regulation of all civil aviation in Kenya. This includes managing the air traffic control for the entire Kenyan Flight Information Region, which covers not just Kenya, but extends over large portions of the Indian Ocean. On any given day, JKIA alone handles an average of 220 commercial flights. That includes 160 passenger flights and 60 cargo flights. In terms of passenger traffic, we're looking at approximately 25,000 travelers passing through JKIA daily. A complete shutdown of KCAA services would mean no air traffic control, no safety clearances, no runway inspections. In simple terms, planes cannot take off or land. The ripple effect would be immediate and catastrophic for regional travel. The economic implications are staggering. Aviation contributes significantly to Kenya's GDP. According to the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, the direct, indirect, and induced impact of air transport was estimated at 180 billion shillings in the last fiscal year. That's roughly 4.5% of GDP. A prolonged shutdown doesn't just stop flights. It halts the flow of perishable exports like flowers and fresh produce, which rely entirely on air freight. The horticulture industry, which earned the country 150 billion shillings in export revenue last year, would be paralyzed within 48 hours. Tourism, which is still recovering, would suffer another devastating blow. Hotels, tour operators, and related services that depend on daily international arrivals would see immediate cancellations. The Kenya Association of Hotel Keepers and Caterers estimates that a one-week aviation shutdown could lead to losses exceeding 5 billion shillings for the tourism sector alone. This isn't the first time Kenya has faced such a threat. In 2022, a similar strike notice by aviation workers was averted at the 11th hour after intervention from the Ministry of Labor. However, the underlying issues were never fully resolved, leading to the current crisis. Comparing the two situations, the demands are now higher, reflecting the cumulative effect of inflation. Furthermore, the political context has shifted. The current administration under President William Ruto has emphasized fiscal discipline and reducing public wage bills, which may limit the government's willingness to pressure the KCAA into a costly settlement. The Ministry of Transport has so far only issued a brief statement calling for common dialogue, but has not indicated any direct intervention. We now turn to our panel for analysis. Joining us remotely is Mawson D. Ma, Secretary General of the Kenya IVI Shun Workers Union. Mr. Ndiema, thank you for your time. Your notice speaks of a last resort. Why has it come to this? Thank you for having me. It has come to this because of 18 months of empty promises and bad faith negotiations. Our members are professionals who ensure the safety of millions of passengers, yet they are struggling to make ends meet. The cost of living has skyrocketed. The 60% demand is not arbitrary. It's what's needed to restore purchasing power to 2022 levels. The KCAA management lives in a bubble. They enjoy hefty allowances and benefits while the technical staff who keep the radars running, who guide planes in bad weather, are treated as an afterthought. This strike is 100% avoidable. All management needs to do is return to the table with a serious, respectful offer that addresses the eroded salaries and the broken promises on medical cover. Thank you, Mr. Ndiema. We also have aviation economist, Dr. Aisha Mwenda. Dr. Mwenda, from a purely economic standpoint, can the KCII afford these demands? That's the multi-billion shilling question. The KCII's financial statements show it has operated at a modest surplus for the last 3 years. However, their revenue streams are vulnerable to external shocks, as the DG pointed out. A 60% wage hike would indeed consume that surplus and likely push them into a deficit, unless they significantly increase charges on airlines and passengers, which would make Kenyan airspace less competitive. There's a middle ground. The union's demand is based on historical erosion. The authorities' offer is based on current fiscal reality. The solution likely lies in a multi-year agreement with a higher initial increase, maybe 25%, tied to productivity gains, and a clear plan for revenue enhancement. But the cost of a shutdown far outweighs the cost of settlement. A single day of grounded flights could cost the broader economy over 2 billion shillings in lost activity. Fascinating perspective. Let's bring in our final guest, Captain James Alu, a retired senior pilot with 35 years of experience. Captain, from a safety and operational viewpoint, how critical are these KCII staff? They are the unseen guardians of the sky. As a pilot, my primary interface with the KCII is through air traffic control. These controllers manage incredibly complex traffic flows with precision. A strike doesn't just mean delays, it creates an immediate and unacceptable safety risk. You cannot have skeleton staff in a control tower. It's all or nothing. The same goes for the safety inspectors who certify aircraft and the engineers who maintain navigation aids. Their work is non-negotiable for safe operations. The system is built on full staffing. A withdrawal of labor by these 2,400 professionals doesn't just slow the system down, it switches the entire national aviation system to off. There is no contingency for this. The military might step in for very limited essential services, but they cannot manage civilian commercial traffic at scale. The skies would effectively close. Thank you, Captain. That is a stark warning, so we have a clear impasse. The union feels disrespected and financially strained. The authority claims financial constraints. The economy faces a severe threat. What are the possible outcomes? Outcome 1, a last-minute deal. This is the most hoped-for scenario. It would require intense mediation, potentially from the Cabinet Secretary for Labor or even the Office of the President. Both sides would need to make significant concessions. The union might lower its monetary demand in exchange for a guaranteed, faster implementation of non-monetary benefits like medical cover. The authority might secure a longer implementation period for salary increases to ease the fiscal burden. The precedent from 2022 suggests this is possible, but the stakes and the sums are higher now. Outcome 2, a full-scale strike beginning February 16th. If this happens, we will see immediate cancellations. Airlines like Kenya Airways, Ethiopian, Emirates, and British Airways will have no choice but to suspend all flights to and from Kenya. Domestic carriers like Safarilink and Air Kenya will also be grounded. Airports will become holding pens for stranded passengers. The export coolers at KCAA will fill with wilting flowers and spoiling produce. The negative headlines will flash across global news networks, damaging Kenya's reputation as a regional hub. The government would likely invoke essential services laws, but that could escalate tensions and lead to a protracted legal and industrial battle. Outcome 3, a partial or rolling strike. The union could choose to escalate gradually, perhaps starting with a work to rule or selective withdrawal of services from key departments. This would cause severe delays and disruptions without a complete shutdown, increasing pressure on management while maintaining some public sympathy. However, given the all-or-nothing nature of air traffic control, even a partial strike in that department would have near-total effects. As the clock ticks down to February 16th, all eyes will be on the meeting scheduled for tomorrow between KAWU and KCAA, facilitated by the Central Organization of Trade Unions. The outcome of that meeting will likely determine the course of the next week. For passengers with travel plans from next Monday onward, the advice from travel experts is to stay in close contact with your airline, consider flexible tickets, and have contingency plans. For businesses reliant on air freight, the recommendation is to explore alternative routes through neighboring countries like Ethiopia or Tanzania, though capacity there is limited. This standoff is more than a labor dispute. It's a stress test for Kenya's critical infrastructure and its economic model. It highlights the delicate balance between workers' rights to fair compensation and the financial sustainability of public institutions. It also exposes the interconnectedness of modern economies, where the actions of 2,400 individuals can impact millions and shave points off national GDP. The resolution, or lack thereof, will send a strong signal about Kenya's stability and its commitment to maintaining its position as East Africa's premier aviation gateway. We will, of course, continue to follow this story closely. For now, the nation waits, hopes for dialogue, and prepares for potential turbulence. From all of us here at Kenya News Update Today, thank you for watching. Subscribe to Kenya News Update Today for continuing coverage on this and other vital stories. Good morning.